And four,
I don't even know what to
three,
make of that statement, Cody.
2, 1.
Hello, and welcome to the weekly wrap with the USA Liberalists. Today we have Jordan, Cody, and Rob with you today.
Hello.
Hello.
We have a few different topics we're going to talk about. First up, we're going to talk about some of the politics of the Catholic Church. So Rob is going to lead us in that. We're going to talk about Impeachment-gate-gate,
No.
whatever.
Not Impeachment-gate.
I find it personally kind of boring, but it's popular and everyone's talking about it. So
let's put it this way. I call it like, we know we're not going to beat him in 2020, so let's get rid of him in 2019.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I originally called it election by other means.
That's actually, or a palace coup by any other name.
Hail Mary.
We're also going to talk about Turkey invading Syria.
Yep.
And we're also going to talk about the third world known as California.
We do not have articles for that, but we can talk about that.
We can definitely talk about that.
Wait, is there a separate show notes? Or am I an idiot?
I put some notes for the California thing.
I went for the wrong notes.
At the bottom there.
Hold on, I can fix that real quick.
So all of this and more on your favorite YouTube morning show.
I just realized I ran out of coffee. I'm going to step away for a second. I'm going to get more coffee. Otherwise, this is not going to end well for anyone.
Should just have a right.
That's probably the next.
I always go to my favorite coffee shop, 7-Eleven, in the morning.
Oh, yeah? It's a good coffee shop right there.
$4.
Very high quality. All right. And we're just going to bring all this shit down. Thank you. All right. We have the correct articles up now. Minor organizational error.
Hooray.
All right.
We're professionals.
I mean, obviously, yeah. How else are you supposed to? Okay. Hold on. Really? He wants me to sign in to see the full Trump campaign, see his impeachment motivating base.
Woo.
All right. We're just going to use that as a backdrop then. Fuck you, Wall Street Journal. All right. So you want to fill me in a little bit about what's going on with the Pope possibly being a Jew?
I don't know too much about it.
Huh? In Panama, it was like 95 degrees a week and a half ago. We're down to like 70 degrees now, 75.
Mm-hmm.
So, anything similar where you guys are on?
It's 44 degrees here.
Damn.
I don't know. It's like 80 or something.
That's like shorts weather.
Yeah.
That's not that bad. 44 is
not bad. I like 44. Where I grew up, that wasn't shorts weather because we just didn't wear shorts when I was growing up, unless you were actually in the middle of summer. But even then, we used to wear blue jeans probably in the middle of July. And I don't see anybody doing that anymore.
Yeah, it is currently 55 degrees outside, so good weather.
Yeah. I think I've got like a 68 right now. I think we're going to have a high.
Okay.
All right, next up we have traffic.
Well, that is a separate issue.
The traffic on 281 North sucks, as usual. Back to you.
All right, yeah. Traffic this time of day all across the country sucks.
Don't worry, guys. It sucks.
Yes. But we have a traffic report. Yes, it sucks. Back to you, Jim.
All right. So, yeah, Rob, what's going on with the Pope and the Catholic Church?
And why is he Jewish?
There's a lot of things going on with the Catholic Church that it's been in a state of weirdness for quite a number of years now.
Okay.
First off, we've never had a Pope, which was the guy immediately preceding, Benedict, basically resign. That didn't make any sense. I mean, we're talking throughout the entire however many year history, the Catholic Church basically came into being after the split with them and the Eastern Orthodox
Right.
in like, I think it was 1100 or so. I don't remember the exact date. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But so since then, we've had a church led by Rome without anybody else to challenge it.
Mm-hmm.
And in that entire time period, we have not seen anybody ever resign while they're still alive. The only way to get out of the job was to die. And you don't stop being Pope just because
You don't feel
resign.
like it, yeah.
He's still technically a Pope. And then we got this other guy coming in who, it was obvious that he was, a liberation theology guy. There was a lot of things about him that a lot of Catholics like Nico were probably not happy with right off the bat. And now he's spending 3 weeks at a synod in Brazil, which is itself, spending that long at a synod is itself kind of unheard of. And basically what they're doing is they are having pagan rituals in the middle of the cathedral there.
Okay.
So you can imagine.
What kind of pagan rituals?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm really not sure.
That the Catholic Church is slightly pagan.
Well,
I'm not sure what a synod is.
The Protestants in general claim that
a synod is just a meeting of church leaders.
That is right. A synod is basically a church gathering.
Okay.
All right. It's a convocation that is larger than the individual parish. So every diocese has at least one yearly synod. Okay. And so then you can have an archdiocese having a synod, and then you can have the entire whatever the what do you call those things? The denomination having a gathering, the worldwide gathering.
Mm-hmm.
But typically these things last at most a week because people have day jobs, and that this is lasting 3 weeks is crazy. They had a fertility mother. They had two statues of two naked women in it was a really weird ritual from what I could see. They had some shaman looking dude looking like he was from the rainforest doing some sort of dance as well in another ritual. These things, I know that the Protestants have this claim that the Catholic Church has a strong streak of paganism running through it, and I can understand a little bit where it's coming from. But this is actually kind of like, this goes past and beyond any of the wildest dreams of your most ardent Baptist, who thinks, who's basically thinks of the Catholic Church as nothing more than a cult. You understand? These guys are breathing life into what I have seen in the past as bigoted claims. I'm not a Catholic, but I also know bigotry when I see it, and I'm like, no, you're basically, you've gone a bridge or two or three too far. And now I'm looking at all this stuff, and I'm like, what did you do? Raid the fever dreams of some Yahoo in some, primitive Baptist church railings and go, yeah, let's run with that. It's that bad, and I don't think Nico would disagree with me.
Okay.
And if he does, I really hope he does. I really hope it ain't as bad as it looks from what I've read. This guy, this particular Pope, it's like he's almost gone in there to destroy the very institution he's leading. And I don't say that with
typical Marxist.
But yeah, there's that. Yeah, well, liberation theology. You understand? It's kind of like how.
Yeah, what does that mean? What is that?
Okay, that is,
Jordan. I don't know about you. I'm not super religious.
Okay.
Yeah, I got baptized once.
I am not. I am a heathen. I've never been baptized.
Okay.
It's about what I know. There's water.
Yeah, I've been baptized in a river in Michigan in November after Thanksgiving.
That sounds not fun.
It was cold. There was snow on the banks.
I don't think your parents liked you very much, man. I'm sorry.
Actually, I did that as an adult.
Oh, okay. You don't like you very much then. All right.
I don't like you very much.
At least get hot chocolate afterwards or something.
Yes, actually. No, well, let's put it this way. Yeah, I got some really good food after. But
Sign me up.
Yeah, really.
I could do that for some hot chocolate.
Would. Yeah, hot chocolate though, you don't have to get baptized in a snowy river, or you can just say I want hot chocolate. I mean, it's really, you can skip the first step if that's all you need.
But it makes it so much more
Yeah.
It's like you earned it, right?
That's right.
It's like divine hot chocolate.
Yes. Getting back to what is liberation theology.
Yes.
What you had were Catholic priests back in the 70s. It started in the 60s or 70s, and it probably was in its most open form in the 80s. You had priests who basically were helping communists foment revolution in South America.
Okay.
And they felt that it was that there was a theological basis for the communism and bringing that about. And and today you kind of see echoes of that when you see some leftists put the meme together where Jesus is a socialist.
Okay.
And the part that's so missing in all this is that yes, you are called to give, and to give as much as your heart calls for, even to give your all. But the difference is it's of your own accord. There is no compulsion. There is no force in this.
Right.
You understand? And that's the part that the socialists completely miss. If I was to give, let's say, Cody everything I own, which would be insane, that would be a gift. That would be me being generous. But if Cody comes into my house with a gun and takes everything I own, that's theft.
Right.
My generosity is a virtue. Cody's theft is a sin, and they're 180 degrees apart. There's the only thing that's similar is the giving.
Right.
It's the end result is Cody gets all your stuff.
Yeah.
The end result is the same. That's exactly right. That is the only similarity. The difference is that me giving Cody everything of my own volition and walking away, I'm alive, I am hale, I am whole, and I have not been financially raped. That was my own decision. Cody sticking a gun in my face and, let's say, roughing me up along the way in order to compel me, maybe shooting me, kneecapping me once just to kind of really get the point across. It's a whole different scene. And that's why throughout the 20th century, it always wound up the same way. Mountains of bodies everywhere. Every time you try this, it always winds up as mountains of bodies.
Yeah, I think the philosophy is supposed to be that like the good communist would volunteer, right? They would be the Jesus in this situation, freely giving up what they own.
Well, the thing is but that's actually counter to the writings of Marx, what you just stated. That's what they are hoping for, but Marx actually called for, being the realist that he is, in that sense, the tyranny of the proletariat. When he said tyranny, he was dealing with ancient monarchies at the time that would run you down and stick a sword or a spear through you for just looking at them sideways. So when he said tyranny, he meant bloodshed in the street.
It's true. I don't think they fully appreciate that, but it is also true that Marx, I'm not disagreeing with you, just to be clear.
No,
Marx is
you're putting a nuance on it.
Yeah, well, Marx. The whole idea behind Marx was like there's like a 3-step plan when it comes to Marx, right? First, you need and this is a really important part that I think most of the communists really miss. First, you need an extremely powerful capitalist state. America is basically the only place that this even could conceivably work if we were a major manufacturer, and we're not. So it's already fucked. But you need an extremely powerful communist state that is self-sufficient. Then you need the people to rise up and take it over. I think it's been proven at this point that revolution, because it destroys the capitalist aspect of the state, it basically needs to be peaceful. Like a revolution is not going to work. And then after that, the people need to sign on voluntarily to the communist state. That's the only way you can have a lasting communist regime. It needs to be first economic, then political, then cultural, in that order.
Right. No, if you read Das Kapital, even Marx, for all of his hatred, and I really don't, I've decided words really matter. I don't even call it I don't call it capitalism anymore. I call it a liberal economy. For all of his, he called it capitalism as a pejorative.
Right.
So when we use the term, I'm a capitalist, you're actually falling into a trap, in a sense, a linguistic trap.
Okay.
But if you, even he, for all of his hatred of the liberal economy, admitted that it takes a liberal economy to generate the wealth, just like you pointed out. You can't do it any other way.
Well, yeah, the means of production need to exist to seize them. So.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You need exactly right. You need the means of production so that you can seize them. Is exactly right. And the other part of it that I find so interesting is that if you really look at what he was also promising, because if you think about it, this is a philosopher, I'm using the term loosely, writing in the early 19th century. He's promising a utopia. This is his idea of utopia, where nobody starves to death anymore. That's all he's promising, because starvation was a reality.
It was rampant.
Same way today, today our biggest problem is obesity. They had starvation at the same level that we have obesity today. You dig? I mean, you didn't actually die from it every time, but but if you look at this, if you look at the size of human beings today in the Western world, the average height is hitting close to 6 feet tall for a man. The average
I'm munching on almonds right now.
What?
I'm munching on almonds right now as we're talking about obesity.
There you go. Yeah, and you're
capitalist.
You're going to consume more in your breakfast than the typical person ate through a day back then.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Okay. And so your typical Westerner who was doing marginally better than others, but it was already better, was basically 5'4" and 120 pounds.
If only I could be that attractive.
There you go. So the problem is that
way.
Right?
No, they were. Everybody was freaking bone thin. Being fat was a mark of being wealthy. So
about before peasants.
Yes, exactly. The peasants are revolting. Yes. So what else is new? So that's all that communism promised, is you don't starve to death. Guess what? Its very need to exist, its raison d'etre is gone. We don't have that problem anymore. There's actually no starvation anywhere on the planet Earth unless it's actually induced by state activity deliberately somehow limiting food from a group of people.
That's true.
Only way to happen.
It is also true that Marxism has definitely evolved from that point, because you do have the actual Marxists, but when you talk about communists, most of them aren't actually Marxist anymore. Marx is more like a founding philosopher rather than the primary philosopher at this point. Although I'm not sure where most of them actually fall, because I've talked to Stalinists, I've talked to Maoists. I don't think I've ever talked to I don't think I've ever talked to anyone that was a Castroist. That doesn't even sound right, but neither do any of the other ones. So take it for what you will.
You call it a Castroist is a castrati.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm trolling the hell out of you. A castrati is a certain kind
I
of
know
meat.
what I know what a castrati is.
Okay.
I was just moving on from that one, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but
So,
what?
well, let's get back to the Catholic Church.
What?
So, how does all this
Well,
play
what it
into
is
what
this
happened?
is the mind. Well, what it is this is the mind frame of this particular pope. I don't know. I mean, with that statement about Christ not being God, he's just removed himself from the faith. You cannot be a Christian unless you say Christ is God.
Is it possible that he just meant, like, God gave Jesus the divine injection, or like he put Jesus on earth and then just like separated a human piece of himself?
That's actually what you just described was an ancient heresy that was rejected by 2550 BC.
Okay.
Okay. 5080, excuse me. And there are what they call
you heretic.
No,
yeah,
not again.
No, it was at first a heresy and then an apostasy.
Okay.
What it is are you familiar with the term Nicene Creed?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Okay. There are three ancient creeds: the Apostles' Creed, Nicene Creed, and Athanasian Creed.
Okay.
Each one just gets more and more complicated because they invented the creeds to counter heresies. In other words, this is how you think about God. This is how you think about Christ. This is how you think about the Holy Spirit. It's a triune God. And it can get really hairy to try to explain it.
So an attempt at like formal education. Okay.
Well, it was absolutely. And but the thing is I believe in one God, Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and then you go on from there. I believe in Jesus Christ, the Son of God, God from God, light from light, true God from true God. There was never a time when there was no Christ.
Okay.
Okay. And Christ is fully God. And it doesn't matter where and when we are talking. If you are small o orthodox, meaning if you're orthodox in your belief, not necessarily Eastern Orthodox, but if you are a Christian, you have to be that's one of the tenets of the faith, and it's what they would call a non-negotiable.
Okay.
You renounce that, you're not a Christian of any stripe. I don't care what you wear. And so
you can still claim to be a Christian, but you're a heretic at that point.
I guess you just couldn't be a Catholic at that point, but
actually no,
because as I understood it, the only real requirement for, because I know that Christians like to delineate between Christians and Catholics, but the only real qualifier for a Christian was, was supposed to be.
For me, Catholics are all Christian, all Catholics. How do I put this? Catholicism is but one denomination within Christianity.
That's the way I've always treated it.
Yes.
But
yes.
Okay.
Anyway,
and I don't care what some Baptist minister is going to say. He's wrong.
All I was saying is the only requirement I ever understood for calling yourself a Christian was believing in the divinity of Christ.
Yes, and guess what this Pope just did?
Okay.
He sullied that divinity with mortality.
I understand that it's a heresy, but I still can't help but wonder if he's still like trying to say, Christ is divine, just maybe not while he's Christ.
And the thing is yes, and no, you're hitting it on the head, Jordan.
Okay.
The thing is, by him saying that, he's cutting himself out from the fold.
Okay.
It's the equivalent of saying, I believe in democracy, but I just don't think people should vote for who their leadership is. You can't.
How does that even work in the actual faith? Because like, if the Pope is supposed to, have like some aspect of a divinity, right? So
According to Catholics, yes, not according to anybody else.
I mean, sure,
He's
but
supposed to be like more or less infallible.
which is why I'm kind of wondering is like if the Pope says it's not a heresy, is it still heresy?
Okay. The infallibility of the Pope is, first of all, contested by everybody outside the Roman Catholic Church. Then,
I mean, he's the leader of the Roman Catholic Church, so
right now. But the thing is let's also not build a straw man. The Pope can be wrong. He just is not wrong when he is speaking as to addressing a doctrinal issue in a certain setting.
okay.
I do not believe that the infallibility clause, according to Catholics, is in force when he's doing an interview with some reporter for a newspaper. Is that fair?
I mean, possibly, but I mean, yeah, I get it. But I'm sort of thinking along the lines of like, if he's supposed to be, because I'm pretty sure the Pope does have like the lease to basically be able to dictate what is and isn't. I mean, I know he wasn't specifically outlining it's like this is my heresy policy in the middle of an interview, but I also doesn't he have the ability to assign what is and isn't heresy?
Well, the thing is that what he has said is so far outside the bound,
right,
that I cannot see how it is possible for him to continue. This is causing an uproar like you could not believe within the Catholic faithful.
That's fair.
And the thing is the Catholic faithful are the people who this guy likes to denigrate the most. So I find it to be, it's almost like, I don't think this was a slip of the tongue. I think this was a deliberate statement made. And I just do not understand the point of it, though I do see it as an evil statement. Being a Christian myself.
Sure.
Well, Nico was also saying that there's a powerful German contingent of the Catholic Church that is also pushing this sort of, I think, liberation theology, as you said.
No, they're just basically pushing a liberal theology. They're being
progressive.
Their churches, they allowed a few things to happen in Germany. If you want to go to an established church, you have to pay a tax. What's the best possible way to empty the pews of a church?
Force people to pay to get in?
Exactly. It doesn't have to be a large tax because that might actually galvanize people. Make it small and annoying. The churches are empty in Germany.
Well, yeah, it's supposed to be, you're supposed to tithe, right, to the church, like 10%.
To the church, not to the state.
Oh, the state is taxing the church.
There you go.
That's crazy. I was going to say that.
And by the way, tithing is an Old Testament thing. In the New Testament, it's you give until it hurts. So it's not 10% necessarily.
I think I prefer tithing. Jesus.
Yeah, I was thinking that going back to your argument earlier about how one is compelled, one is forced, and the other is
there you go. And that's exactly right. That's why they kind of, you got a lot of people who talk about tithing, but they really haven't thought through what they're thinking there. It's an Old Testament concept. And if you really want to get picky about it, if you look at all the different tithes and offerings you're supposed to make, according to the Old Testament, it comes out to about 28%.
Someone tell that to some of these mega churches that are like sending people tithing bills.
Yes. Well, no, the mega churches that send tithing bills that's what I would call a heresy. That's actually heretical.
The entire mega church is heretical. But I'm an atheist, and I know that.
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. Yes. The thing is that there is a difference between heresy and apostasy. Heresy means you are a Christian, you're just incorrect in one of your doctrinal stances.
Yeah.
Apostasy
You're
is
just
like
wrong.
your stance is so far outside the teachings is that you really just don't believe, do you? You're wearing a cross kind of the same way,
Right.
let's say some Hell's Angels is wearing a cross while he's busy sticking a knife into somebody.
Does that mean his
You're
mama
so-
tattoo doesn't apply anymore?
I'm not sure.
You're
Mama.
so far outside the bounds of what is that we get to burn you at the stake.
You know what? I'm not even sure if that's that itself is a heretical act. Even though
Well,
when
that's
I look
good.
at some people do, my visceral reaction is like, yeah, let's burn them, because that's anger. But the thing is that there should be, when it comes to faith, if you listen to what Christ actually said, there shouldn't be compunction. And what's really interesting is that the Christian church in its early history grew exponentially while the Roman state was trying to stamp it out. So when they had the least amount of political power, they grew the fastest. We have no idea how many Christians there are in China because over there they're suffering under the same sort of abuse.
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone likes to talk about the Muslim work camps, but I haven't even heard anything about what goes on with the Christians, and I know the Chinese don't like religion in general, so I'm not sure why they would put up with Christians but not Muslims. It's the same general idea. They're both Abrahamic,
Yes.
so I'm imagining the Chinese wouldn't be
because the
huge
Muslims
fans.
are actually, because if you look at the way Islam is structured, it's as much a political movement as it is a belief.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a rival system where
Yeah. Well, remember,
Christianity is not as political.
well, actually, think about what Christ said. Give to Caesar that which is Caesar's. Give to God that which is God.
The Christian church.
All of the ramifications of that, they're huge.
Yeah, the Christian church isn't, I guess, as revolutionary necessarily as
Well, not anymore.
like the Islamic church is.
Well, they had their period of what I would call.
Every institution has that, though.
Yeah. Well, every institution goes through different periods of what I would call, where it gets, I'm going to say militant, but in we're going to use force. We're going to use compunction, even though, but when you think about it, that's in this particular instance, compunction and force are antithetical to the doctrines and core tenets of the institution. And so while they kind of did go on this forced conversion binge starting in the second millennium, that was as much a reaction to what Islam had done to Christianity prior to that as anything else. I don't think we realize right now in the 21st century just what a shock it was when Constantinople fell.
Okay.
It was a huge shock because that was the center. That was as much the center of the Christian world as Jerusalem.
Didn't Constantinople just fall because some dude had like some super wall breaking technology that he tried to sell to Constantinople, and they were like, "No, we don't need that." And then their wall got fucked up.
I don't remember
Well,
I don't remember the entire details, but there were also claims of some inside job at that
possibly.
point. But,
Well, that is part of it, but I mean, the Eastern Roman Empire had been decaying for a long time at that point.
yes.
Also fair.
I mean, well, think about it. It was 14 something. We're talking 1,400 plus years after Christ's death, or after Christ's birth, that Eastern Empire had survived, which is to me remarkable because I don't think anything else had any political institution had ever survived that long. It was a remarkable thing. And it was, in many ways, a huge part of what we now call the Western world. in more ways than we can even fathom.
Well, yeah, they're the successors of the Roman Empire.
That's
and
exactly
even,
right.
Even the Pope is sort of, you can kind of draw parallels between the Pope and the Pontifex Maximus of the Roman religion, which at one point was united with the office of the Caesars,
Hmm.
the Roman Empire. And so,
Yes. Well, that was part of the problem that they ran into Jews in Palestine. It was like, you have to call, when you say Hail Caesar, you are hailing a god, which caused all kinds of consternation with the locals.
Yeah, not a huge fan of that, huh?
What? Having a state religion? No.
Yeah.
well, that was a problem too. When the Roman emperors started seeing themselves as gods, like when they were right before, like I think it was Diocletian, before Constantine converted everything to Christianity, they started living more in the East and seeing themselves as like divine emperors as opposed to just a political office. And there's even a story about when they went back to Rome, they were upset because the Roman people remembered that the emperor is just a guy who consolidated political power, essentially, as opposed to God incarnate, and they were upset about it. So they basically just said, "Fuck Rome, we're just going somewhere else," and they lost interest in Rome pretty much after that point.
Well, let's put it this way: there was a lot of reasons to split, and but we're kind of really veering off topic here, which is fine.
So,
but I think we've kind of beaten this one to death at this point. What we have is what will be seen as a very destructive pope. In history will not be kind to it.
Well, luckily, there's always a new pope coming around the corner.
That's true. Unfortunately, this guy's kind of young for a pope.
Well, I mean, anything this pope does, like the next pope, if it's really all that destructive, the next pope can probably fix it.
Yeah. But the thing is what's also a problem is that there is, and Nico will tell you about this, there is a mafia within. You've got this is a rather interesting devil's brew. The same people who are hiding the pederast priests are the same people who are supporting this pope, giving him political muscle. So it's a really nasty combination.
I thought this pope was going after the church pedophiles.
What?
I thought this pope was going after this.
Let me kind of give you an idea how. Look, I think it's lip service.
Okay.
I mean, they had a 4-day conference about the pedophiles, which you would think that deserves 3 weeks of attention, and they're now spending 3 weeks conducting pagan rituals inside a cathedral. So, where do you think this guy's? What do you think? Just from a standpoint of what's important, what do you think is important? Given that,
apparently not pedophiles, which is unfortunate.
No, there'll be some lip service. A few guys, somebody might even be sacrificed to kind of say, "See, look, we're doing good things," and they're going to continue playing hide the salami, whenever they can.
So that problem's not getting solved anytime soon.
Talking about slimy political motives.
Oh shit!
Are we now turning to Trump and the Democrats?
Yes.
Yeah. Which one are we talking about?
We're going to talk about Impeachment-gate-gate.
Impeachment-gate-gate-gate. All right.
I mean, there's a lot of information out there already, so we don't have to spend too long on this unless we want to.
Right.
I just wanted to make a few
My
points.
impression is that this will backfire and hurt the Democrats.
Well, looks like the Trump campaign agrees with you.
I think so, too.
So basically, the GOP thinks it'll just rally their base.
Yes.
If they just frame it as a coup.
Well, I think
pretty much
kind of what it is.
I think that the most interesting perspective that I heard was because, I was listening to Tim talk about this, and he basically said that there's 3 real ways of looking at this. There's the optimistic version of events that says that they're just they're following through on their principles and saying we don't care how much it hurts us, we're going to impeach this president. There's the pessimistic view of this that says this is like they're
One
just
second,
going
guys.
after.
Hang on.
Okay.
Give me a second. I'm gonna drop out for 1 second.
Okay. Well, there's the pessimistic view of things that says.
I'm back.
Oh, what? Oh, you meant literally a second. I thought you meant you needed to get like coffee or something. You good?
He's got that on tap, man, in the veins.
Oh shit.
I've taken your advice, Cody, and I've gone off and stuck this tube onto my arm, and all is
Man, you must be nauseous as
All
hell.
is
All right. There's like the pessimistic view of things that just says, this is all just political pandering. There's nothing going on here. And then there's sort of like the moderate point that Tim was talking about. It says, yeah, there might be some people that think this is principled, but on the other hand, really, this just looks like a Hail Mary.
Yes.
This is just, they know they have nothing else, so maybe they can catch the Republicans off guard.
Well, I think what it is when you really think about it, this is the fever dream of what I would call the AOC base of the party. In other words, and it's actually the Pelosi base too, because she comes from San Francisco. This is what those voters want. And they have a lot of clout in the party because those are the primary voters.
Is it possible this is a two-stage plan?
No, it's not a two-stage plan. It's a one-stage plan. It's a no-stage plan.
Well, okay. Listen to this.
Well, what do you mean two-stage plan?
Well, here are the possible stages.
They have a base that's completely out of its mind. They want the word impeachment used. They want to impeach this guy because he's an illegitimate president in their eyes. And there is no way you're going to convince them otherwise. In the meantime, you have the moderates in the party who are in their districts that they won last time. Those districts are going to flip right back to Republican, and they're going to lose the House.
Well, yes, if things continue as they currently are, yes. I can't help but wonder, because I know that the Democrats are trying to figure out what to do about AOC, Rashida, the progressives in general. Like, I think they're looking for an escape hatch, honestly. Because sooner or later, they're going to have to. Now, one thing they could do, potentially, going into 2020, is basically especially if Hillary is looking at going back into the race, what they could do is push all this impeachment right now, and then have one of their candidates come out strong and be like, no, I refuse to go along with this. The progressives have gone insane just in time. Like, whoever it is, if they can get one of the establishment guys in through the primary and get them through the primary process, as soon as the primary ends, suddenly they can flip, go center, say impeachment was crazy, those guys are crazy, cut them out of the Democratic Party, and now you've got a strong Democratic field for the 2020 race.
There's one small problem with your cunning and devious plan there.
Okay.
The media, and this includes kooks like the Young Turks.
Sure.
But it also includes MSLSD, it includes NBC and ABC and the New York Times. They are also in the impeach Trump camp. The problem is that they put too many true believers in the news. And
True.
Now everybody has known for the past 25 years that that the media has been carrying their water. The media gives them about 10 points in the polls. The media is like a voting block that they've been able to create because it is the bully pulpit. It is the town square. And so really they've tied themselves to this wagon. This wagon, this election cycle, is gonna go over the cliff.
I'm having a hard time imagining that they don't know that. Just because they know the progressives, there's not enough.
I know they do. And the leadership knows it, but the thing is have you ever been in a situation where there is no good solution?
Well, yeah, of course.
And that's where they're in. They've painted themselves into a corner with it. They can't get out. They can't. They're stuck.
Well, I think the leadership knows that going more to the left is probably a bad idea, but the loud vocal minority in the base wants that, and nobody else is saying anything else, so they're confused.
Well,
I think this is mostly a product of social media and people just believing social media is real life.
well, there's social media.
Yeah.
Oh no, I agree. There's social media. They're all crazy. Then you have the actual media. Frankly, they're all crazy too.
Yeah, they're almost as crazy.
That's two of the votes. And then you've got the primary voters in so many of these districts are right there as well, if not worse. Okay, that's the scary part. And then you have the elected officials, let's say half of whom are cynical but don't and would love to get rid of the guy if they thought they could get away with it, but they know they can't. And so what happened is this is the crazy part. And in a way, it's kind of an interesting thing. Pelosi and the Dems took power when Obama came into 2008, and they lasted what? All of one, maybe two terms before they lost control of the House again, because people can be made to, because the media is so strong for them, people can be made to forget how bad it is when the Democrats control the House. People saw Trump, he's a shit show. And so they said, okay, let's divide the government. It's a standard tactic of the American electorate to do that. Guess what? There's a huge, whatever buyer's remorse there is about Trump, it is nothing in comparison to the buyer's remorse regarding putting these kooks in power. Nobody who voted in an Ohio district or in Orange County, California, wanted Jerry Nadler up on that screen every flipping day, banging a gavel, trying to get rid of this guy. They were hoping for kind of like a Bill Clinton era. Congress is productive and the president is signing bills brought to him by Congress. It's a pipe dream. And that's why it's not happening. And they're going to get routed. Regardless of who wins the presidency, they are going to get routed.
Yeah. Especially a lot of these
Hope so.
like a lot of the well, I think a lot of the freshmen congressmen and senators like AOC, maybe not all of them, but I think most of them are about to go.
Yeah,
Honestly.
yes.
Like if AOC doesn't leave this term, she's probably sticking around for quite a while, but I suspect that she's leaving this term.
Let's put it this way. I didn't grow up that far from where the district where she got elected from. I might even be in her district.
Okay.
And if I was still there, unless something's changed in New York City, the fact that they lost, what was it? They lost Amazon and they lost one or two other things, and she thinks it's a good thing. They're furious.
Well, yeah, especially when she just went up there. It's like, why are you guys blaming me? It's not even my district. God.
Yeah. Yeah.
How is this my fault? Like, yeah.
Vote her out.
Yeah.
But if they do, they're racist. So
yeah. Well, the thing is they are running all kinds of people against her. They're going to run. I mean, the problem is like her and Alid, is it the one in Minnesota?
Mm-hmm.
They got so many people running against her that the fratricide might keep them in office. You understand what I'm saying? Unless the field completely gets brought down to one, and then you're going to have to convince a lot of people for her, because a lot of the people in these districts have been conditioned to never vote Republican.
Well, yeah, that's a too many cooks in the kitchen sort of thing.
That's exactly right. So if they cannot coalesce fast enough, there will be no name recognition.
Well, one of the points that I wanted to make for the impeachment thing is that technically, like officially, they haven't voted on opening an impeachment inquiry.
Yes.
Well, yeah,
So
they're still just doing
people-
this. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it.
Well,
What
it's
they're
like,
doing is
oh, we're doing it. We're conducting investigations, but we're going to call it an impeachment inquiry. But we're not going to vote on it to grant the powers to the House, to all the members of the House, to investigate this.
Right. They got 6 different impeachment inquiries occurring in 6 different committees. Okay. All it is it's a witch hunt. And the thing is, they know the minute they bring it to the House floor, that's when everybody in the House, that includes Republicans, gets subpoena power, and that's the last thing they wanted.
Yeah, because I talked to some of my friends a few days ago talking about what Congress could actually be doing, and I'm just like, because I think that what they're hoping is that Trump is going to do it himself, and because they were saying it looks a little bit fishy that Trump isn't cooperating, and I'm like, he doesn't need to cooperate, and if if you've ever been in a legal situation, if you're dealing with the police, the advice any halfway decent counsel that's not drunk and high at the same time is going to give you is don't cooperate. Make them get the warrants. Make them get the subpoenas. If they want the information, they are capable of getting it if they have any proof that there's even a reason for them to be looking into it.
Yes.
So,
yeah. Keep your mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut. Like, if you didn't do anything wrong, you actually should keep your mouth shut.
That's exactly right. That's kind of like whenever you watch those TV cop shows, it's like no attorney worth his salt. Like, whenever they have the actor dramatically say, tell this attorney to shut up.
Yeah.
And I want to talk here. Any decent attorney grabs a client by the collar and literally yanks them out of the room at that point. Okay? And frankly, most attorneys don't even let their clients stay in the room with the cops. You want to depose my client, you will do so in my office under very, very, very tight control.
Yeah, I have all the information you need, bud.
Depose at all.
Yeah.
I mean, the last place any attorney is going to let their client be is in an interrogation room with a seasoned cop.
No, I want Congress to go ahead and vote on impeachment. Let's do it.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get the subpoenas.
Exactly.
Let's do this. Like, if you guys actually think this is necessary, okay.
Well,
you have the powers.
What's been kind of an interesting transformation for me has been like, as time goes on and they continue to investigate this guy, what I'm beginning to realize is, yes, he's a barbarian. Yes, he's a loudmouth jerk. Yes, he's an a-hole. But I'm coming to the conclusion that
he's our a-hole.
Actually, he's a reasonably honest man, because you had 12 Clintonista lawyers investigating this guy for 2 years. Trust me, if they would have found anything on this guy, this would have gone. This would have been an impeachment. You understand what I'm saying?
They've gone hyper viral. Yeah.
It's like, I never would have believed it in a million years. But the Democrats actually, in their stupidity, proved in a way that I could never prove to myself that he's actually in some ways an honest man. And I'm like, how the hell did that happen?
I think the Democrats are holding 2 counter ideas at once, and it's that they believe that Trump has done something so bad that they can impeach him on, but they have to get the American people just to see that, and that they don't have a way of doing that, while at the same time they control like 90% of the mainstream media and can get any message out that they want.
Correct.
Yeah, I think they're hoping that they can just say impeachment enough times they'll convince, the average idiot that they just say it enough times. Impeach.
No, it's like Dorothy clicking "I want to go home" with her shoes.
Well, no, it reminds me a lot more actually of like the Iraq War. It reminds me a lot more of them we didn't say Iraq had WMDs. We just said Iraq and WMDs in the same sentence until some Joe Schmo just listening and not really paying attention is going to hear Iraq has WMDs. Just keep saying it until they listen, until they hear the lie. right? We don't ever actually have to say the lie. We just have to say it in a sort of correct configuration until people start believing it.
Right. Yeah, but the thing is this is where it's different. You don't actually have to take it to court.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a court of public opinion. No matter what they do, no matter how often they repeat that, it's got to go before Congress, and it actually takes on an element of a legal proceeding. And now the dreaded laws of evidence come into play. And so only thing that they can do is recommend that the Senate try this guy.
God, I wish the Republicans trusted Trump more. I really do. Can you imagine if the Republicans went into Congress tomorrow and we're just like, so we're voting on the impeachment inquiry. I don't know what you guys are doing. We're gonna vote for it. So I hope you guys are with us.
I think some Republicans have said that they want to vote on this.
Yeah, let's do it.
But they don't have the power to do that right now in the House.
Oh, that's right. They need the speaker to recommend it, don't they?
Yeah, the committees and the speakers
Motherfuckers
are all controlled by the Democrats. So,
dude, if I was Dan Crenshaw, I'd be on
the
the fucking news every day.
The Republicans have done that before, where they're like, "Oh, we want to do this," like the Green New Deal. They're like, "Let's do the Green New Deal," and then the Republicans are like, "Okay, here, let's vote on it." And they're
McConnell's
like, "Oh no,
the whole way.
You did it too." Yeah, right. It's like call their damn bluff. That's all Democrats are doing right now. It's like they've been dealt such a bad hand over and over and over again, and all they have is to bluff, and the Republicans know that.
Yeah.
And so I don't like if they could, I think they would. To be honest.
Well, I don't think they have enough confidence in Trump, unfortunately, because yes, Trump so far has been clean, but is that due to him being actually honest, or is it that he was like a New York real estate developer 40 years ago with that knew how to deal with the cops and knows how to hide information and knows how to layer things? Maybe both. And I don't know if they necessarily have enough confidence that if they actually had subpoena powers, yes, the Republicans would probably be able to make gains with those subpoena powers. But I think they're scared the Democrats would too. I don't think either side is fully confident that an actual impeachment inquiry would be beneficial. Unfortunately, because God, it would be funny to see the Republicans out there. It's like, let's do this. Come on.
Well, I think with the GOP, one, they're using this essentially as fundraising, and it's working.
Yeah.
They're framing it as a coup. And then two, the main concern that they have is that it'll alienate independent voters, is what I've been hearing. Is they're worried that independent voters are going to be like, well, he's under investigation for impeachment. I don't know if I want to vote for a guy like that. But for the Democrats, I don't know why they want to do this other than Orange Man bad.
Wouldn't it be almost better for the Republicans?
I don't know why the Republicans feel that way, because the Democrats, when they bring this up in their town halls recently in the more moderate districts, they're getting booed.
Well, I can understand. I can understand why they'd be scared of the independents fleeing, just because if I'm not paying attention, right? If I'm not fully paying attention, would I be confident enough to vote for someone that's under impeachment inquiry? Maybe not, but it is also true that remains an ever-present threat. So if they can start,
that sounds like a never Trump lie. It really does. I mean, and I didn't vote for the guy, but I cannot imagine how anybody who has not been in a coma wouldn't see this under impeachment thing as anything other than a political stunt.
You got to remember, there's a lot of very politically disengaged people in this country.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of them.
The most of them, in my experience. But regardless, it is also worth considering that from the Republican side of things, they should probably remember, the Democrats are going to be able to hang this over their head if the Republicans show any weakness on this one. Right? If they show any weakness, the Democrats are just going to use this as a potential club, and eventually, if they actually think that it's worthwhile, in the middle of the general election, they'll just go for the impeachment inquiry, and then it becomes the same thing. I think they should go ahead, do the inquiry, get it over with as fast as they can. Help the Democrats. Fucking help the Democrats. Help them with the subpoenas. fucking just dismantled the whole inquiry in 3 months flat.
Well, the Democrats are drawing this, I think, because I have a hard time understanding why the Democrats are doing this other than they want to get Trump, election by other means.
Right.
I don't see how it benefits them other than that. And even if they do, let's just say they do the impeachment inquiry and, oh my God, like he's been embezzling money from the U.S. Treasury, impeach. Then you get President Mike Pence. But I think the hope ultimately is that, because, you hear, well, we're going to impeach President Trump and then we're just going to keep on impeaching until, I'm like, that's not very democratic of you.
That's really not how that works at all. Because, at least with Trump,
Kinda
they've got
like
something. Sort of. With Pence, we haven't even been hearing anything about Pence. What are they going to impeach him on? He spends too much time with his wife?
Yeah,
He doesn't want to have lunch with a strange woman alone.
Oh, no. What are we going to do?
What a monster.
And then Me Too. No, it's really funny. And then Me Too happened, and everyone looked at Pence like, you're a genius.
Right.
It's
like I've been doing it my whole life.
Well, they're gonna get him. They're gonna try to go after him on the, what is it? He hates the gays.
Yeah, with the electroshock therapy stuff. But
yeah.
I don't need advocating for a position. I don't view that as impeachable.
I don't think so either. I disagree with him. I think it's silly, but
well, sure. But did he actually do it, or did he just be I think it's a good idea?
Well, no, I don't. And I don't think he pushed for electroshock therapy necessarily. He just conversion therapy, which if you take the progressives at their word, if you can choose to be whatever gender you want, why can't someone help you along with that?
They don't know what they mean. Fuck's sake.
Therapy. Right? Like if it's just a choice, why can't you get therapy to make the right choice?
Yeah, it's just you can choose your sex, but you can't choose who you have sex with. Interesting logic, guys.
Right, yeah.
To say the least. No, I mean, there are a number of studies that just came out. There is no gay gene. Okay, guys? Forget it. There is no gay gene. There is no science behind this. I look at it this way. You want to go and choose to whoever you want to have sex with, go ahead, but don't ask me to applaud your decisions. And that's the sticking point. It went from leave us alone, let us have sex with who we want to have, to you need to laud and applaud our decisions. And that's the sticking point. And
yeah, every time I suck a penis as a man, I need a fucking applause behind me.
Yes. a round of wild applause.
Yeah, not just not even a slow clap's good enough. I need a standing ovation, and then I need a standing ovation behind that standing ovation to make sure that the first standing ovation ovates twice.
Yes.
And if you don't, you're a bigot.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's guys, just fuck off.
Well, I think honestly, for the Republicans, if they want to swing some of the LGBTQ people, LMNOP people,
the alphabet people.
The alphabet people, yeah. If they want to swing some of those guys, because I do believe there's a community within that community that's tired of this. You have to worship up because we're out, because we're gay. It's we just want to be regular people. And I think if the Republicans came out and said, look, we might not agree with it, but we believe you're regular people. And if you want to do that, that's fine. We're not going to stop you. We can disagree and we can both coexist. Then I think they could win over some of those.
Some of the more moderates.
I just think the Republican Party is so conservative, and I'm speaking as a Republican, that change, it's like the Catholic Church, man. It's just takes forever to change anything.
Which in some ways is good, but
I've been around a little longer than you. I have seen the Republican Party become much more socially liberal and much more fiscally liberal in my time. So while I think the real cutting point is that we really need to just return to being fiscally Scrooge McDuck kind of people and recognize that we lost the culture war and leave it at that. And because
Well, we lost
Let's
certain
face it, as
sections of the
another friend
culture
of mine
war.
put it, if the government goes back to being 5% of the GDP, you don't have money for putting, let's say, transgenders into storybook hour. You don't have money to teach kids about the evilness of white privilege. You don't have money for all of these. You cannot fund the outrage studies program. You cannot fund all of these stupid wars that we're getting involved in all over the world.
Well, I think
You
it's
can't,
it
you
is.
don't have
Oh, go ahead.
you don't have money to fund all of this crap.
I just think it is worth noting, though, because I think you're right about the fiscal conservatism for the most part. But when it comes to the social conservatism, I'm just like, I'm not sure it's even possible necessarily for the conservatives to actually win a culture war in the long term. Because typically what ends up happening is, like, we have the first generation, right? Well, like, we have the primary generation, which is everybody from, like, 0 to 60, right? Or I'd say 20 to 60. You've got the young generation, 0 to 20, that does not care about your conservative values. They don't. It's just the way it is. They're kids, right? Um, they move along. They come up with all kinds of crazy ideas. Move into their 20 to 40s. They filter some of those ideas into what actually worked. In other words, this whole like white privilege shit. This like the alphabet people hysteria. It's all gonna die down and I'd say if my clock is right, about 10 years. Then you go 40 to 60, and now they're the conservatives that have taken all of the best parts, as far as they're concerned, and said this is the culture. And now the wheel moves again, right? It just moves around and around and around. I've always viewed the conservatives as the filter for the culture, not the driver of the culture.
Well, I don't know. That might be true. But I think conservatives have. I think they're having a research. I mean, it just kind of depends on what you define as conservative, I guess, because there is like a resurgence in, like, I guess, conservative culture, if you want to call it that.
Well, sure,
Well, the
but
thing
what
is,
conservative
I
do you
hate the
mean?
word- Yeah, I hate the word conservative because to me, you got guys like what's his face?
Yeah, that
You got Gingrich calling himself a conservative, and then you have what do you call it? And I don't consider him a conservative. Then you have William F. Buckley conservatives, and now Trump's calling himself a conservative. That just makes conservative a meaningless term.
And Ben Shapiro.
Well, because
yeah. So it's like if all of those can be conservative, then guess what? And then you've got the leftists in the Democratic Party who claim that Hillary's a conservative. And I'm kind of like, okay, guys, you just broke the irony button in me completely.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, as things progress, conservative kind of changes because.
Yeah, well, that's why I hate the term. What are you conserving? So
well, that's the thing,
like,
because that's sort of what I mean, though, as far as like the filter. Because like everybody is pointing to this next generation, right? The Zoomers that are coming up, and saying they're so conservative, right? They're so conservative. They're the most conservative generation since the 50s. And I'm like, maybe, but they're not conservative the way that they would have been in the 50s, right?
No, what
like,
they are is sick and tired of having their elder siblings who are millennial idiots telling them how to think, how to talk, what's racist, what's not. I mean, what's really crazy is if you look at the modern left, they are as hysterical and as insular and provincial as anybody was in New England tying women to them as witches.
If they had the power to actually execute that, maybe. It reminds me a lot more of like the extreme evangelical right from the early 90s. Because that's what I remember.
Those guys.
Well, I lived in I was sort of in a Baptist area when I was growing up, and like my surrounding growing up was pretty religious. So I was able, like, I at least got a view of these guys firsthand. Because there were still remnants of them when I was growing up. It's just I'd say in the early '90s is when their power started to break, from what I can see. Um, and then moving into the late '90s, early 2000s, that's when you had like the punk culture and all that stuff that you still see remnants of in millennial culture. Even though for some reason we seem to have forgotten that the whole point was leave me the fuck alone. But whatever. Which unfortunately might be the same for the Zoomers, and we'll see what weird shit they come up with. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just not convinced that the conservatives actually can win a culture war, not without force.
Well, I mean, again, it just depends on what you mean by conservative. I think if, like, because my definition of conservative is to conserve like traditional American values, and I think that kind of conservative can win the culture war. I think they have to, in my opinion. Now, that's not going to say it's going to be exactly the same as it was, 1776 or whatever, but
No, I'm using the rolling definition. Basically,
okay, yeah.
basically whatever the conservative is of that time. That's what I mean by conservative.
Because I'm thinking, because like I said, when I think of conservative, I think of like American culture, kind of sort of thing.
I mean, the modern conservative, I mean, the closest approximation that I could get to like a generic conservative would probably be Ben Shapiro. Honestly.
I think he would probably that's a reasonable yardstick.
Like, if you want to know what the mainstream right thinks, ask Ben Shapiro.
More than probably. I think that's not a bad way to look at it. I think what's happened is we're watching a really big. We haven't seen a transformation like this probably since the turn of the 19th century. The Republican Party is becoming, whether it likes it or not, but Trump is doing this. If you want to get your run-of-the-mill, blue-collar tradesman, odds are, after this realignment, he's going to be voting Republican. The fact that the GOP establishment would rather cover itself in gasoline and set itself alight than admit that that's happening is a separate issue.
I'm not even sure why. A vote's a vote.
Well, the thing but the thing is they used to be the party of Wall Street. And what's been happening ever since Reagan, really, is that they've become the party of Main Street. And what's interesting is that the Democrats, who used to be the bread and butter party of the working man, have become the party of Wall Street and the mega tech companies. If you look at the white cohort in the Democratic Party now, they are wealthy, they are educated, and they live in the coasts. And many of them are. And what's interesting is that they are in places like Silicon Valley for a reason. So they are no longer the party of the factory worker. And the Republicans have also become the party of the factory worker, whether they like it or not.
Well, Silicon Valley won't be a problem for much longer. They're all going to die of like the Black Plague and syphilis.
Well, that's another interesting thing. Like,
they're all going to have the power turned off.
Well, then there's the power turning off. You can imagine what that's going to do to their computers. No, but think about it this way. What California has been as a state, the entire state has been under single party rule since, and it used to be a Republican state. I mean, that was a state that was reliably Republican until the 90s. And so what's interesting is that they've taken it over and they've run the state into the ground
Mhm.
because these are the new Democrats. The Democrats who've been in power in places like Massachusetts, they still are the old Democrats, as liberal as they are. They're not the, we're gonna, they don't play games like they do on the West Coast. They're not the Portland Democrats. They're not the Seattle Democrats.
They're not the socialist Democrats, democratic socialists or whatever.
Yeah, they're not democratic socialists. They are still Tammany Hall Democrats. Patronage.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I mean. As someone who lives on the West Coast, I can see that playing out in our local,
Mhm.
I guess, government. Is that
Mhm.
we have a bunch of people that have been in office for a while, and it's worked. But now, like the Democrats have a super majority in Oregon, and so there's a struggle now between the progressive, democratic socialist kind of Democrats and the old school, like, oh, everyone can just get along and we'll make some compromises and we want to do this for the unions and everything.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. No, the guys who work in unions are people
yeah,
that
they're starting to
they're told to basically shut up and come by the new socialist
make
Democrats.
some compromise. Right.
And especially if you're white, male, and straight. And God help you if you're Christian. Do you realize that they have made it almost impossible to be a Democrat and a Christian in a country that is still 60 to 70% Christian? They have painted themselves into a corner like you could not believe. And if you look at who are the atheists in this country, it's not a very large cohort, and it's predominantly white.
Aye.
And so you are looking at a prescription for this electoral disaster. Because I think the other thing is that the Republicans under Trump are figuring out that you do not talk to a minority community as if they're minorities. He doesn't go into their districts just to talk to them. He has a rally and everybody's
No, he does. He doesn't. He doesn't pull a Beto where he suddenly starts, like just magically spouting off Spanish in the middle of the.
That's exactly. Yeah. The other thing is he doesn't walk into the South in front of a black congregation at a Zion Methodist church and suddenly he has a drawl.
Suddenly speaking Ebonics.
Yeah, or speaking Ebonics. It's the same Queens, Manhattanite businessman with the same lousy haircut, lousy tie, lousy fitting suit, no matter where he goes.
Why does his suit fit so bad? Like, really now?
I don't know. If I had that kind of money, my suit would fit better. I could tell you that.
My suit would be fan-fucking-tastic if I had that kind of money.
I don't know. I don't trust somebody whose suit fits too well.
Yeah,
then again, if his suit fit too well, they might be able to actually see him.
Yeah, but the thing is this guy doesn't care.
It's true.
You know what that would never even come into that kind of thinking wouldn't even come into play with him. He is who he is, and I think we know who he is. We know what we've got, and I think we probably have somebody who's a little smarter than I realized and a fair bit more honest than I thought when he first got elected. And the Democrats proved that to me. What I cannot figure out is all the shit talk.
Well, he's either more honest than we realized or so ridiculously dirty and has been for a long time that he's good at hiding it. We'll see which one. We'll see.
Okay, so yeah, but now we're back to the whole he's either an idiot or a super evil genius.
Yeah, he's literally Al Capone too.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think so. Nobody's that smart that you can hide something from that many lawyers with that much resources for that long.
Al Capone did it. I don't know if
he wound up in jail.
Okay, on tax evasion, not on the Okay, he missed one thing. That's true. He did miss a thing, but
he missed a few things.
And the
thing is that Al Capone was actually doing crap. I don't think this guy's actually doing crap like they're claiming he's doing crap. So Listen,
First
at this
subpoena,
point, I
go to
realize
his desk,
I'm
find it
20
like a
minutes,
Tommy gun.
I'm 20 minutes past due for punching out. So, hey, guys, enjoy the rest of the talk. Great talking to you.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you later, man.
Peace, guys.
Later, dude.
Peace.
Hey, bye.
Now I want to see Trump's Tommy gun.
Right. I think he's got one under the Oval Office desk.
Oh, for sure. Like, there's no question.
That's how you negotiate with Putin.
Right. Putin's gonna kick the door open and he's gonna be in there with like a mountain of cocaine. Just fucking say hello to my little friend.
Just cocaine flying everywhere.
This is what I want.
What is Trump, literally Scarface?
Yeah. So you want to talk about the California power cuts?
Sure, because I think we basically covered the. Oh, we didn't talk about Syria, but we can get there.
Yeah, this story isn't super well. I was disturbed by it.
Oh, wow, 1 million Californians still in the dark. I thought this was like a planned outage that was going to happen here in a few days. P&G apologizes for not being adequately prepared for preventative outage. What in the world?
Yeah, so
I didn't realize how bad this was getting.
Basically, California has decided that anytime that it's windy, they're going to cut the power to prevent fires. Now, see, I was talking with Rob before the show, and I don't know if this is a political thing or if this is just the power company or if there's a difference in California, because I know some states own the utilities.
Sure.
He made the point that the politicians have made it so, I guess, cost prohibitive to actually like have the company do its power structure, the infrastructure, that they neglect that. Plus, I made the point that after the Paradise Fire that they got sued for that. And so
are they just being like extra careful?
Yeah, they're trying to prevent another lawsuit. They're trying to show that they're doing everything possible to prevent a fire so they don't get blamed. So I think it might have something to do with the company being super risk averse in this time of social media. People being a little sue happy.
Welcome to America, yeah.
Right. And then the politicians essentially harming business with their crazy tax the rich policies. So I think it's like a shitstorm of epic proportions.
Well,
it
looks like
just
PG&E at least restored power to like 500,000 homes, so that's good. But that means that they're still 1 million after that. Oh shit.
I think so. It was hard to nail down like a specific number because there are different stories that have different numbers.
October. Okay, so as of yesterday, it looks like they turned on another 300,000. So that's good. We're without power from 3 utilities Thursday night. Okay. Oh, is that after?
Yeah. There might be an update at the bottom, maybe.
Possibly. Estimated too many people in the area.
Well,
yeah, this is shitty.
I just don't think that it's right, I guess. I heard somebody say that this is, and this might be conspiracy theory, but that this is retaliation for all the lawsuits the company has been having to deal with. I don't know that that's true.
Is it retaliation or is it just protecting themselves?
I think it's more that the second one.
Like that's not the same thing.
Like, right. I can get it. Maybe they're upset about it, but I don't think they would just then go off and upset everybody else. But human nature is what it is. Maybe
with a huge company like this that's servicing California, I feel like they'd be more profit driven than that.
Yeah, I doubt it. I doubt it's just like, well, all these people sued us.
So fuck them.
Yeah, fuck those guys. We're gonna cut their power when it gets windy.
Everybody that sued them is just gonna have no power for 2 years.
Yeah, I think it's more just like trying to avoid more lawsuits, and this is the solution they have right now.
That sounds like the corporate America I know. Yeah.
Right. That's the simplest answer, and it's usually the correct one. So that's what I'm gonna go with. I have a problem. Like normally, I'm pro free market, but I don't think this is free. I don't think this is the fault of the free market necessarily.
Okay.
I think because I think this might have something more to do with how litigious everything. Is that the right word?
Oh.
Sue happy.
Yeah. That's right.
I think it might have more to do with that and avoiding risk, and then social media being able to spread that out, and so more and more people are able to sign on to lawsuits and whatnot. They have had some pushback. The company has PG&E
For keeping the lights out so long?
Yeah, like one of their facilities got egged, and then somebody shot at one of their utility vans.
How long were they out of power? What the fuck?
I don't know, man, but you take people's Facebook away.
God, these guys were real bored. All right.
I'm convinced that social media is kind of like a drug. And if you take it away, people are going to go through withdrawals and get kind of angry.
Dude, when I lose power, like, it's honestly kind of nice. For a few days, I just do other stuff. I mean, obviously, I'd like to be able to take hot showers. That'd be great, but...
Well, yeah, there's that, and then, like, cooking is, nice, and be able to refrigerate your food.
True.
Is awesome. I love it. You don't have to eat all the ice cream in your freezer.
Oh no! I have an excuse to eat all of the ice cream in my freezer.
Look, it's
what
not
am I gonna
Wednesday.
do?
It's not Wednesday yet. That's Wednesdays. I don't want to eat it on a Thursday. Come on.
No, it is shitty that these people lost their
That's
power,
but yeah, and I can.
But like, for how long? Because that's what I'm still trying to figure. Okay, so the blackouts began early Wednesday, more than 55,000. Added later in the day into Thursday. It's going to cost $1 billion. Damn. All right.
Yeah, I heard that it's cost $2 billion, something like that, in lost revenue.
Yeah.
Like, because businesses have to, like, you can't run a cash register without power. You
Oh,
can't
that's yeah. I was reading customers as like houses, as in like individual homes. I wasn't reading customers as possibly being like Facebook.
Well, yeah, it's all of those. Well, yeah, it's grocery stores, it's manufacturing facilities.
Oh yeah, that's more of a problem than I thought. Okay. But then again, don't most of these places have like emergency power anyway?
Some of them do, like hospitals and stuff, but like where I work, if the power goes out,
like,
that's it, man. Like, you just wait till it comes back on. We don't have anything that's like life threatening or people are going to die if the power goes out. We just lose.
Yeah, my local grocery store has backup power, so that helps.
Yeah, most retailers do. Like, I worked at Target for a number of years, and we had backup power to keep the refrigeration going.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
To run the registers until that transaction that we were currently doing was completed.
Right.
And then we were supposed to shut them off. So they have some backup power, but not enough to like run the whole facility, because those giant buildings take a lot of power to run the lights and, temperature control, registers, all sorts of different things. So yeah, this isn't just affecting like homes, so it's affecting everything. You can't, if you didn't have food on hand, like now you might go hungry, or ask your neighbor, I guess. Apples are in season, I think.
I'm guessing there's a whole lot of people that are rethinking their stance about making fun of preppers.
Yeah, it's like you should have cozied up to those guys. I always, try to make friends with those guys because maybe they'll
share.
they'll let me borrow a gun or something. Who
Yeah.
knows?
No, I'll just go to my stepdad's house. He's got a fucking arsenal.
Have my own. Well, yeah, get into canning, guys.
Get into
FYI.
canning. Get your own
Dude,
canning
canning's
machine.
awesome. I have machine. Come on.
You have a
just need
canning machine?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Have you ever canned before?
I'm no. I've never considered it a personal hobby. No.
No. We used to can like vegetables and green beans and all sorts of stuff. I canned apples
Okay.
last weekend. So I have apples for the winter. I canned them in a light syrup, so it'll be like fucking candy.
Larry's actually probably right. Like if you're gonna go for like part of the prepping thing, you should probably at least have the basics. Like you said, probably canning of some kind, generator. Some sort of some way of preserving food. Yeah.
Yeah. Buy cans of canned food. Get some Spam. That stuff's good forever.
I'm gonna buy some canned cans.
Yeah.
Get a big old can of cans.
Chop up some wood. Keep a cord of wood on hand at all times. Matches. I don't know if everybody has all this stuff. I mean, I have a taser flashlight, which might help.
Well, yeah, but the battery life on those is normally not great. Especially if you use the taser part.
Right. Oh. Well, I was just thinking, if I'm looking around for stuff and someone comes at some zombies, I don't know.
Does tasing work on zombies? I don't think so.
Maybe. It might slow them down. I don't know. Zombies are mythological creatures.
You don't know that.
But I just think it's, like, to me, this is something that's terrifying, that they will cut the power. Because, like, ultimately, I want to know who gets to make that decision to cut the power, what the criteria is for cutting the power. Oh, I guess tasing doesn't work on zombies. Yeah, shotgun will probably work better. I think that I just lost my train of thought. I think, well, yeah, who's making these decisions? What's the criteria for making them? And then what's to stop them from just changing that criteria of cutting the power? And because I can see this being like, well, you don't support climate change, and so we're going to cut your power until you do.
I mean, because the way I'm reading this, though, is because I'm sure Larry's right about it costing $1 billion, but at the same time, turning off the power for like a day or two, most people should be like, I'm trying to imagine who wouldn't. Okay, if you're literally on an LRAD and you don't have any sort of backup generator because you somehow thought that would never come up, all right, you're in trouble. But other than that, like, who's actually in danger from this? I really don't understand, because I've had the power go out before. It's just not that big a deal for the most part.
Yeah, but how long have you had the power out?
It's been a few days. Like, I've lived in places like Florida where the power goes out for a few days when there's hurricanes. I've lived even in Alabama. Sometimes you need to do that. I remember out in, this was when I was a kid. This is like Mississippi, I believe. Could be wrong on this one just because I don't remember very clearly where this was exactly. But yeah, like, I've been in situations where the power's been out for a few days. It's just not that big a deal for the most part.
If you're ready for it, yeah, but dude, this is California, man. This is the West Coast.
They're not ready for anything.
No, they're not. They look down at preppers. They're like, just go to the grocery store. What happens when you can't? Well, that'll never happen. That's silly. Hey, we're here.
Whoops. Well, even that, because I won't speak for California. I'm not that familiar with California grocery stores, but like HEB, they have the capability of producing their own energy. Like my local grocery stores all have the capacity to produce their own energy if they need to for like a week. Is
Yeah,
it ideal? No, but
I don't think because like in California on the West Coast, we don't have a lot of natural disasters that knock the power out for an extended period of time. Like the longest I've ever been without power where I wasn't in the woods is probably like half a day, maybe.
huh.
Like I've never been like several days without power. It's just not a fact of life.
Well, it's not normally in Texas either, but I mean, I don't know. It just seems inconceivably irresponsible to just not have any form of backup power for these companies.
It probably happens often enough to where people have some sort of backup for it. But
That's
on the
fair.
West Coast, like the worst disasters we get are maybe floods and then
wildfires,
earthquakes. Well, wildfires too, but that doesn't really knock out the power unless you live out in the woods.
Why does no one call them forest fires anymore? They're all wildfires.
Because wild sounds more threatening. Well, because Smokey prevented all the forest fires. These are wildfires. It's different.
All right, well, fine. Smokey gets credit where credit is due, but I'm just saying.
I don't know. I had to think about that. I'm normally pretty sensitive to the whole changing of words thing.
I'm just saying, it just seems like a strange one.
Maybe it's because they want to make the claim that these fires are out of control, and therefore you need to give them more control.
Are they implying that these fires were actually created by dragons? Like, are they using wild with a Y? Is that what's going on?
Maybe. Not in Oregon. They're usually started by kids shooting fireworks into a dry forest.
You mean not military lasers is what we're saying?
Nope.
Well, God damn it.
Damn 16-year-olds.
And they're military lasers.
So let's touch on Syria, and then we'll wrap it up, I think.
Probably should, yeah. World leaders unite in condemnation of Turkey's Syria operation. Because Turkey is full of assholes. Well, at least the leadership. I'm sorry, Turkey. You're delicious, I'm sure. All right. Governments across the world joined in condemning Turkey's military incursion into northeastern Syria as the
most delicious country.
As this conflict ran into its second day. The European Union Foreign Affairs Chief Frederica, in a statement released by Germany's Foreign Office, her name is Frederica. I'd use your last name, but I don't have any clue. Called on Turkey,
Texas.
Called on Turkey to stop its military action into Syria, to prevent undermining the stability of the region. Military action will indeed undermine the security of the coalition's local partners and risk protracted instability into northeastern Syria, providing fertile ground for the resurgence of Daesh, an Arabic acronym for the okay.
ISIS.
Oh, it was like I've never heard it called that before. Okay. Arabic acronym for the Islamic State. And so we have a video says over 100 killed in attack on U.S. allies in Syria. Great. Thanks, Syria. That's what we were looking for. That's ideal.
Well, yeah, like this whole thing it started when Trump pulled out of Syria, right? He pulled U.S. troops out of Syria.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, yes, that's a good thing. We want to get out of the endless wars. Like, I don't think anybody's really in favor of that. But at the same time, it's like, what benefit does it do to anybody if it just creates instability?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure exactly.
You're going to piss off the people that were friendly to you, and then the people that already hated you are still going to hate you.
Well, yeah, they're not going to magically be like, oh, man, thanks, U.S., we're not going to hate you anymore. No, not how that works. But I got to admit, when I first heard about this whole thing, I was actually pretty pleased. Because I was like, all right, finally, we're getting out of Syria. Fuck yeah. About time, right? And then I hear more about the details, like with the issues going on with the Kurds and Turkey, and I'm just like, fuck. is there seriously never going to be like an exit point? Can we please just get all of our soldiers home out of the Middle East? I'm done with the Middle East. They need to fix their own shit. I'm not sure, and I don't know. Some people are saying that we need to stay there to stabilize things, and I'm like, yeah, because we have a great track record with that, right?
Yeah, and I get that argument too. I understand that.
Our track record of
Like
stabilizing the Middle East so far has been amazing. I know.
There's got to be an end point to it, you know? Like, and that's the problem I have with a lot of things, I think, is that they get started and then nobody's like, okay, this is the point at which we're done. It's like, okay, we need to go into Syria and stabilize it. Well, like, okay, what does that mean? When is it going to be stable?
Well, yeah, and some people, I guess, some people talk, because I was talking to some people online about this, and they seem to think that like it's only okay for us to leave once the Kurds are fully self-sufficient and can defend themselves against Turkey. And I'm like, so nation building. So we're doing nation building again.
Yeah.
Great. Can we not? Can we please not? Goddamn.
Well, the U.S., I mean, part of being the top dog is the U.S. gets criticized for being the world police, and then when we're not the world police, it's, well, why aren't you being the world police?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you can't win either way. You have to, I guess, you have to have a little faith that these other countries are going to take care of themselves, right? They have to be independent.
Oh, they will be.
They can't just depend on the United States all the time.
Turkey will make sure that the entire region is independently controlled by Turkey.
Right. It's maybe ultimately that's what's going to happen, I guess. It's not something that I would like. I'm not saying
what are we even supposed to do? Like bomb the entire region and then give it to Israel? Like, what's the actual solution?
That's such a bad idea.
No, I disavow. Instant disavow.
Look,
Negative
Israel's
time
disavow.
No, Israel is, but the first part requires us bombing everything so Israel can move in.
Well, we just let Israel do it.
Great.
They will do it themselves.
Fantastic.
You want a self-sufficient government, man. Israel is it. Israel's got it going on. I mean, they probably get a lot of aid from the U.S., to be honest.
They do. To be fair, Israel is actually a pretty strong state in its own regard. I don't think it would just immediately fall if fucking the United States pulled out, but it certainly doesn't hurt that we help.
Right, and I'm fine with, like, if we have an ally in the region providing aid, you know, being a good neighbor, essentially. Oh, like, you need to help build your fence. Like, we'll come over and help build your fence for you. But we're not going to, I guess, invade your neighbor's pool just because you want a pool. In this analogy.
What if I really want a pool?
Well, if you're going to invade your neighbor's pool, that's on you, man. It's between you and your neighbor.
Okay. It's time to bring out the Tommy guns and the cocaine, guys.
Get the UN involved.
We're going Scarface in this pool.
Which, I mean, this is something, I guess, because it kind of feels like we have a history of, well, the U.S. is going to come in and solve this problem, and the UN just sits back and criticizes everything, when I thought that my perception of the UN is that they're the ones who are supposed to prevent this sort of thing from happening.
Yeah, wasn't that supposed to be the UN's job in the first place? Like, they were supposed to be the world police?
Well, they're supposed to be the place where everybody can come together and settle their disputes without fighting.
Well, who has the... Oh, it's NATO that has the forces, right? Yeah, NATO has actual soldiers. All right, well, regardless, like, I'm pretty sure there's an organization out there that's supposed to be, like, dealing with these sorts of atrocities. It's not supposed to just be the United States deals with everything alone, as usual.
Yeah, and
That's getting a
like,
little old.
yeah, I think the UN. I think the UN is just backed so much by the United States, but that the problem with that I see with the UN is it's like a democratic institution, I guess. Like
That's
member
the
states all
problem.
get, yeah, like what, like a democracy is great if people share the same values.
Okay.
But if you get an influx of people that don't share the same values, then, like, say they don't believe in human rights or the rights of women, women aren't, full citizens and full rights, democracy doesn't start to look so great for women at that point or
Yeah.
humans. And I mean more like pure democracy.
Yeah, I was about to say because like republicanism, I think actually works pretty well.
Yeah, because I think with the founders, they took into account that
It controls for
human
cultural
beings are
conflict.
well, human beings are going to be bad. They took that into account and said, okay, how can we can't eliminate that. How can we mitigate against it the most? How can we mitigate against those effects the most without destroying freedom? Because the only way, I forget what I was reading. I was reading something about the Constitution. I think it was one of the founders had wrote, I think it was in the Federalist Papers, that you can't, like, the only way you have to deal with faction in one way or another, and the only way you can is do that is there's two ways. Is one, you can eliminate the causes of faction, but in doing so you'll eliminate liberty, or you can mitigate against it by checks and balances. And so faction's going to happen because that's just part of human nature.
Mm.
And I think that's part of the genius of the American government, is that it takes into account that we all might be bad people, or that there might be a large contingent of bad people, but even so, that there are some checks and balances against those, what they would call the passions.
Hmm.
Like the wisdom of the people is supposed to check the passions of the representatives, the people's representatives, and the people's representatives' wisdom is supposed to kind of filter out the passions of the people. And so sort of be like a balance there. It's not going to work perfectly, and they
No.
knew that. They knew that they would get it wrong, but it's better than anything that's been done before.
So Egypt is criticizing Turkey.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Italy, Australia.
Okay, Australia has room to talk. I'm
Yeah,
just
I
looking at
mean,
this. I'm like side-eyeing Saudi Arabia. Like really, fucking Egypt,
yeah, I mean, I was
really.
surprised that a lot of these other countries in the Middle East are condemning this. Like, Israel condemned it, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Russia is calling for a dialogue, and Russia and Iran are blaming the U.S. partly, but I think that's politically motivated.
Yeah, who cares what Russia thinks?
Right. Britain is against what Turkey's doing. So I guess across the world, it's not really popular what they're doing. But then again, it's condemning it is one thing, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, seriously, I keep hearing all these condemnations, but I'm like, so the only person with a military around here is us, right? That's what I'm hearing from all these condemnations. The only
Well,
person that's allowed to actually do anything is us.
the only people with the courage to do anything is the United States.
Jesus
And it's
Christ,
like,
guys.
we're done. We're tired of doing that.
Seriously.
Because there's a concept that's, it's like, I was listening to The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, And one of the emperors he's a terrible emperor because he basically has no authority himself. But like other than that, like all his qualities would be considered virtuous. Like he's generous, he's forgiving, things you would consider virtue, but he lacked the courage and energy, I guess, or there was another, or no, temperance, I guess, courage and temperance to actually put those virtues into action.
Gotcha.
Because Jordan Peterson's fond of saying it's not virtuous if you're too weak to do anything. It's virtuous when you're strong enough to do something, but you restrain yourself from doing it. Something like that, I think. Because it's not virtuous to say, well, I'm not going to kill you when you actually lack the ability to do that. It's virtuous to say, I could, but I'm not going to, sort of. And that might be like boiling it down too much. But anyway.
All I know is I am happy to see us out of Syria, even if it's not ideal. I do wish that they would help the Kurds, because it is kind of like, I understand that we don't owe the Kurds anything necessarily. We didn't sign any agreements. We didn't do any of the formal stuff. I get it. But at the same time, they were fighting ISIS. That's good. We probably shouldn't just leave them to die. Probably not fun.
Right.
Probably not okay.
Kind of ruins our reputation.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Jesus would object to that one. But then again, Jesus would object to us being in there in the first place.
Jesus would bomb Turkey. Nope, he would just convert Turkey.
Jesus would walk in there with a fucking flaming sword.
Oh, you're talking like Revelations.
That's
Jesus.
Right. Revelations. I like how there's different.
That's my favorite kind of.
We need like Jesus trading cards. I need Revelations Jesus.
Right.
Just fucking dark background, flaming sword, red eye is glowing.
Jesus playing biblical playing card game. It's kind of like Magic the Gathering, sort of.
But Jesus. All the characters are Jesus, even the bad characters.
No, Jesus can't be bad. Jesus is always good.
I don't know. Revelations Jesus was a little scurry. He was a little.
Yeah, he's supposed to be scary. He's judging you. And he has the power to do it, so that's fucking terrifying. Doesn't mean that it's bad.
I don't know.
It's awful in the classical sense of that word. So yeah, I think we're in agreement pretty much that pulling out of Syria is not a bad thing, but it's also not a good thing. It's just a thing.
Yeah, I'd say the way we did it.
Sides.
I don't like the way we did it, but I agree that we needed to get out of Syria.
Well, yeah, I can agree with that. I don't like the way we did it, but then again, on the flip side is I don't necessarily have a better way of doing it.
I'm gonna default back to my like childhood days. What would Jesus do in this situation where the Kurds need our help, but we don't need to be in Syria? What would Jesus do? I have no clue.
Let's just swap them for some communists.
We're just gonna give the Kurds Russia.
Well,
just stick all the Russians right there and give the Kurds. Just give it to the Kurds.
Like we want to trade Antifa for the Kurds. They can come live over here. They can be Kurdish and do Kurd stuff.
Wait, can we swap the Communist Party and the Kurds? Oh shit, it would be the same thing. Damn it.
Oh, like trade Antifa for the Hong Kong protesters.
I mean, that I'd be down for. That'd be fun.
100%.
Like,
those guys, I love those guys. So everybody needs to go to basketball games apparently and hold up free Hong Kong signs. That's the thing now.
Can I just hold up a sign that says "May is Bay"? Does that count?
Yeah. If you play Blizzard games, they are also pro communist censorship.
Yay! Communist censorship. Woo!
Let's I'm getting on board this free Hong Kong stuff, man. Maybe we'll talk about that next time.
Okay. Yeah, we probably should. There's been a few updates, but we can cover that next week. I guarantee you there's going to be even more updates. It's a very
Even
quickly moving
more
story.
Greater updates, yes.
We only bring you the best
Hong
updates,
Kong
the
will be
greatest
free.
updates. What?
Hopefully Hong Kong will be free by then. Everyone says they're the best. Just ask anybody. They're so great. It was the most beautiful updates.
Is Hong Kong literally Trump?
I mean, I wish I could just be that, like, affirming about everything all the time.
I have the best updates.
Oh, this is like the best dog ever. He's the greatest. There's no dog's greater than this dog. He's the most beautiful.
Honestly, your charity would probably benefit from that. Just walk every time you go into a meeting and just have a whole bunch of pictures of dogs. You want to see the best dog you've ever seen? Look at this dog. Amazing. Does all kinds of tricks. Never peed inside. Never, not even as a puppy. Never did it as a puppy. Already knew.
This is a truly American dog right here.
Whenever he walks in the room, just 20 eagles fly by the window screaming freedom.
He poops red, white, and blue. America.
You should get your dog checked if he's pooping red, white, and blue.
Yeah. If it's red, white, and blue, go to the vet immediately.
Red, white, and blue?
All
Did
right,
you
guys.
give him glue?
I think we're pretty much done. We're kind of making a shitload of jokes, so that's usually a good indicator. Thank you guys for watching YouTube's best morning show. And
best
we will
morning
see
show,
you
only the
guys.
greatest.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because that's how we get the truth out there.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, later, guys.
Peace.
Have a good weekend.